It's us, the Horror Guys.
Yay!
Back once again for more
Horror movies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
And we're going to talk about some horror movies.
We got a short week this week.
It's a short without shorts.
We were slackers.
You were slackers and did not officially watch any shorts this week.
There's a new book coming out soon. So yeah, been busy.
Somebody been busy with that. And then your editor's been busy proofing it. So
yeah. Okay. So anyway, yes. Hey, we sell books.
Yeah, we do.
HorrorGuyShop.com. Go over to HorrorMonthly.com and you got links to all of them there. You got HorrorMonthly.com, you get all 40, or maybe even 41 by the time you read this, issues of Horror Monthly magazine. You can also pick up the 8 or 9 Horror Guys books, like the ones on Hammer Films, the ones on Universal Films, the ones from Amicus, and the ones specially for, individual people like Boris Karloff, Peter Cushing, and so forth. There's also a section in there called Hour-Long Books, where you can read biographies of all your favorite ancient, well, maybe not ancient, old-time horror stars. Yeah, HorrorMonthly.com, it has links to all our books. So anyway, we're not talking about books today, we're talking about movies today, and what did we watch?
Well, we saw Nosferatu again. We saw it at the theater. And then we had to see it officially. So
we've seen it twice. Does that make it Nosferatu 3?
No, it's Nosferatu. If we saw it a third time, then it'd be Nosferatu 3. Anyway, we have more thoughts on that. And we watched the original Wreck movie, like short for record, which came out in 2007. We officially watched that a couple years ago, and we just got around to watching Wreck 2 and Wreck 3. And we also watched Wreck 4. We're going to talk about that
probably
another
next
time.
week. Yeah.
And then continuing the mini theme of sequels, we watched Bride of Chucky from 1998 and Hellraiser VIII Hellworld from 2005.
You've got too many sequels when you have to stop and think about the Roman numerals.
Mm-hmm.
VIII.
Let's see, that's 8. Yep.
Hellraiser VIII Hellworld. Okay.
The Hellworld.
All right. What are we going to start with?
Well, we should start with Nosferatu, I suppose.
Okay. Directed by Robert Eggers, written by Robert Eggers, Henrik Galim, and Bram Stoker. Stars Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, and Bill Skarsgård. 2 hours and 12 minutes. And there's a trailer, if you want to see the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Spoiler-free, what happens?
Well, it's a remake of a silent classic, and it was kind of hit and miss for us. Like we mentioned, we saw it at the theater, and this was our second viewing at home.
We don't see many movies at the theater, so we were kind of excited to go see this one.
Because this one was so hyped, and we were so excited, and yeah. I mean, it is visually impressive, and the cast does a fine job, but the story and script just don't give us enough of anything new. And we thought the beginning was pretty strong. It's pretty dull for a long stretch, and then has a strong finish.
Yeah, if they could cut out the middle hour and a half, I'd be happy.
Or to condense that down to 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm going to say right off the bat, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a 6.
I think I would too.
Yeah.
Overall, yeah.
People are raving about this thing on the internet, and it's all right.
Yeah, there's a lot of love.
Visually, it looks good.
I think there's more love than hate for it.
It's such a dull movie.
Yeah, I thought so. And
plus, you've seen it before.
You know how we're talking about the middle stretch being too long?
Uh-huh.
There's an extended version that's being released for home viewing.
No.
That's even longer.
There is no extended version.
Yes.
No.
Yes, they're hyping that up.
No.
So we could watch it a third time.
Hopefully the deleted scenes will be on YouTube or something, so we don't have to sit through the thing again.
And we could just see the extended scenes. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you've seen the original Nosferatu, and you've seen Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s, you could basically skip this one.
The story's the same.
Yeah. Well, and many of the visuals are the same, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're not going to spoil it in case you have not seen the whole thing, but we're going to start out with if you want to read the full spoilery synopsis, it's there at horrorweekly.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's on horrorguys.com, too. We got the movies on there this week since there's no shorts.
Okay.
Wow. Public access. Nice. It's a thing.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Ellen sits up and prays. Come to me, hear my call. And something hears her. You awakened me from an eternity of darkness. You are not for the living. You are not for humankind, it says. She walks outside, and she swears to love him. Then she has a weird seizure and orgasm as the credits roll. It was kind of almost a jump scare there.
Almost,
yeah.
So basically, she's a fantasizing teenager with psychic powers.
Is she, though?
Well, yeah. She's supposed to be.
Yeah, fantasizing. I don't know if it's a fantasy at this point, really.
Well, I think that might be how it started, and then things got out of hand, and things got a little too real. But, she basically manifested him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, in Dracula and in the original Nosferatu and stuff, he was just a monster. He was always around, hundreds of years old. Now, from watching this twice and listening somewhat carefully, my impression is that he was dead, buried in the ground or whatever. And she literally woke him up with her longing. It's sort of a romance story that way.
Sort of, yeah.
But
then later she changes her mind and he won't go away.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
She unleashed something she can't
She
control.
finds someone a little better for her, but he doesn't want to give up that quickly.
Yeah.
But she caused this. She created it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, years later, in 1938 Germany, Ellen talks to Thomas, their newlyweds. She's dreamt about him again. Thomas is a workaholic, and he really wants a promotion at the real estate firm. Mr. Knock has a special job set up for him. He's been dealing with a foreign count who wants to buy a house here in town. The old count asks to buy an old ruin, and he's paying top dollar.
And this is Count Orlok. It's totally not Count Dracula.
No. Copyrights.
Yep.
Well, at least at the time.
Yeah.
So why does Dracula want an old ruin when he could buy a modern house with doors and, windows that can close and...
Yeah, and a whole roof and things like that.
If I was a vampire, I'd want a solid house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can afford it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the catch is that Thomas needs to go to Transylvania to get the Count to sign the paperwork. The money is good, and a promotion is hinted at, so Thomas really has no choice. Count Orlok will be waiting for Thomas's arrival. Well, Ellen is moody and needy and weird, and she doesn't want Thomas to leave so soon after the wedding. She's had a weird dream where she married Death and was happy about it. Oh boy, I married Death!
Yay!
He tells her never to talk about these things as people will think she's mad. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yeah.
It pretends something awful for both of us, she insists. Well, Thomas's wealthy shipping friend Harding congratulates Thomas on his new position. He brags that he has 3 children, 2 little girls and a boy on the way, and he'll be taking care of Ellen while Thomas is away. He knows that she suffers from melancholy. Well, we cut to Mr. Knock, Thomas's boss, who's doing some kind of demonic ritual. He's clearly both insane and working dark magic. Well, it's a long way to Transylvania, and the local gypsies confuse Thomas. They don't even want to hear Orlok's name.
And they don't speak English, which further complicates things.
He stays in the inn overnight, and everyone there is weird. Very weird.
Yeah, it's a strange experience for him.
An old woman warns Thomas to avoid Orlok's shadow because it has a mind of its own. Unlike the original, I don't remember his shadow doing anything here. If it did, it was subtle.
Oh, it did. He sent a shadow out. His shadow was
Oh, well,
doing
yeah,
evil.
okay. I mean, doing funny things on the wall behind him or something like in the original.
No, not like that.
You're right. The shadow goes over town and stuff.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That night, Thomas snoops and watches the locals go to a vampire's grave and drive a stake into its heart. In the morning, the entire village is cleared out and taken his horse with them, so he has to walk the rest of the way to the castle. At midnight, he encounters a silent black carriage that takes him the rest of the way there.
And that whole thing with the village leaving, it's clearly a permanent village.
I think
They're
it was
not
a gypsy
transients.
camp, but they had houses and stuff.
Yeah, it's not just a camp. They got houses. I mean, definitely permanent structures. And the inn he was staying in, and yet just in the morning they're all just poof.
Well, they know about Orlok, and they killed a vampire in the ground. There's a real good chance, if Orlok made that vampire, he'd be coming back for revenge tonight.
Yeah, I guess just clearing out. Yeah.
We don't know this is one of the problems with the movie. We don't know the story behind this other vampire.
Yeah.
Where'd he come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, we don't know.
Well, the Count is odd, and Thomas is afraid of him from the very beginning.
And I'm just going to jump in and say this whole beginning part was pretty darn cool.
I'm getting to the part where I stopped liking it before long here. But yeah, this is all very good at this point.
Yeah, creepy and atmospheric and mysterious.
Yeah. The Count wants to get right down to business and sign the paperwork. He's a slow, wheezy old man, but he moves suspiciously fast at times.
And he has a magnificent mustache. I'll just throw it.
He tells the Count about what he saw last night, and the Count gets annoyed. When he accidentally cuts himself, Orlok gets excited, and Thomas gets really frightened. All right, I will stop there.
Okay.
This sounds mighty familiar, doesn't it?
It sure does.
You've seen this movie before.
I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, okay.
Dracula and Orlok and Nosferatu, yeah.
And I'm going to say the business until Thomas eventually gets taken prisoner and kept in the castle. You know how the story goes. I'd say about the time he escapes the castle is when the movie stops being good.
It does.
It focuses much more on Ellen, and she is just so dull.
You didn't like her.
No, yeah. I didn't.
Actually, on the second viewing,
you kept talking about her five head.
Yeah, well, that was the fashion.
Her forehead goes all the way. Yeah, I know
it. That was the fashion.
God, you got to look at that for 2.5 hours.
It's a mighty big. Well, it was especially impressive on the big screen.
Her forehead was taller than you are.
It's the moon.
I know. It was the style of the time, but oh.
Okay, but that aside, her performance, I think, really was good. I did enjoy things more the second time. I liked it better the second viewing than the first viewing.
I think she's the only character I really didn't like.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure that it was the character. I think it may have just been her acting.
Okay.
She was just weird. And, I mean, it's a horror movie. They're supposed to be weird, but we're not in a good way weird.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was a pretty good...
Now, Willem Dafoe, he was weird in a good way.
Yeah, certainly was. Yeah.
Well, okay. So anyway, skipping down to the commentary part, it's obviously a remake of the original Nosferatu from 1922 with some modernizations. Nosferatu originally was an unofficial adaptation of the original Dracula novel with only a few minor changes.
Yeah, so much so.
They didn't get the copyright for Dracula, so they just changed some names.
Yeah, let's remake it. And they actually ran into some real trouble. Nosferatu was almost a lost film, the original silent, because they won the copyright fight and insisted that Nosferatu all be destroyed, all the copies, and, all the copies didn't get destroyed, obviously, because it survives to this day.
And I think Nosferatu is probably one of the best horror silent films.
It's excellent.
Certainly in the top 3. Okay, so anyway, the fact that this is Dracula, the basic Dracula story is the thing that worked against it for me. We've seen the same story so many times, and that made it really, really dull. Now, Frankenstein, all these different versions of Frankenstein, each one has something different about it. Sometimes he's intelligent. Sometimes he's a crazy monster. Sometimes he's a woman. I don't know. They mix it up a lot. The Dracula story seems to be the same old thing every time.
And it was this time.
Yeah, it's the same old thing. Well, when we heard this was coming out, we sort of assumed the story would be a new take on that creepy, bald 1922 movie character. He's bald, he's got these pointy ears, and he's very monstrous looking. But it wasn't. He was just a dead guy with a mustache and a bad comb-over. This version of Orlok has little resemblance to the original movie version, which is unfortunate in my opinion. I think the most memorable thing about Orlok is the way he looks. He's like a rat in the original movie.
Yeah, very much so.
This one is tall, has half a head of hair, a huge bushy mustache, and shows visible signs of rotting and decay. There have been uncounted jokes about the mustache, but although silly looking today, it is straight from the book. Dracula had a mustache in the book.
And it was the fashion back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was appropriate.
The promotional material all made a big deal about Orlok being played by Bill Skarsgård. But
it could have been anybody.
It could have been you. Yeah, he's completely unrecognizable here.
Yeah, I didn't think that was anything special that it was Bill Skarsgård.
Yeah, no, it's just he's mostly in the shadows. You barely only see him at the end. Nicholas Hoult is excellent here as Thomas. He's appropriately terrified as needed. He does run around scared a lot.
Yeah, he does.
Ellen, in my opinion, is the weak point here. I've heard people say she's the best part of the film, and I'm going to go just the opposite. She's weird and apparently unstable from the very first scene. Lily Rose Depp definitely put on a performance here, but I'm not convinced it was a good one. Willem Dafoe chews the scenery as the Van Helsing character, who's named something else, but he's always fun to watch.
He's
so
totally not.
All right.
He's not Van Helsing.
No, he's not. But he is.
Yeah.
The visuals are incredible. Everything is dark, but there's still somehow some color to everything. The city, castle, and houses are all well done, and the costumes are as well. Again, the problem here is the too often rehashed story itself. I think the first 50 minutes are absolutely excellent, but once we leave Orlok's castle, it's just a long string of dullness with a good 5 minutes at the end.
And I've heard people trying to make it more interesting and reading a lot into it about the culture at the time was very much, women didn't have a lot of rights.
Well, there's a lot to that.
And
I mean, at one point they tie her to the bed because she's having nightmares.
Yeah,
they keep her drugged, and it's not very.
They were
fair.
property. They were baby makers. They were housekeepers. And not much else.
Yeah.
And a lot of parallels to that, and her being used by men, and I know people reading a lot into this. And
I don't know that that's reading a lot. I mean,
it
kind of was like that in a lot of cases.
Well, but analyzing it in depth,
Uh-huh.
and it's like, whatever, just watch it. It's a horror movie. A lot of the in-depth stuff I think is getting a little too in-depth on it, but yeah, it was okay.
All right,
6 out of 10, like we said.
Now for one that's not quite so deep, Wreck 2 from 2009.
Action.
Yeah.
Action-packed.
Well, the original Wreck was 2007? I
Yeah.
think so.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, basically there was this apartment building in Spain, and there's a zombie outbreak for some reason. We don't know why. It just sort of happens.
It's a disease, yet it also seems to be demonic.
Yeah.
So there's a connection, a crossover of science.
And then the police
and
lock the
religion.
door, and everybody's trapped inside.
Yeah.
Bad things happen.
And there's police in there and residents and they're trying to figure it out. Well, this takes place immediately following the first movie.
Yeah, and if you want to read, if you've forgotten the first Wreck, we haven't talked about it in a couple of years, go over to horrorguys.com, type in Wreck 2007. It'll come right up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this one, Wreck 2, with a little second power to.
Yeah.
Directed by James Balaguero and Paco Plaza, written by those two guys along with Manu Diaz. Stars Jonathan D. Miller, Manuela Velasco, and Oscar Zafra. Hour and 25 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Well, this one picks up right after the first movie ends, with more actually during the movie in some case, a little bit.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
With more people going into the building to find out what happened. There's an expert and more police on the case, but of course the possessed are still a problem. We learn a little bit more about what's caused all this, and we thought it was on par with the first movie in every way. Very good.
Yeah, very entertaining.
Yeah, I was expecting to go into this thinking it was just going to be a cheap Dragon on knockoff thing, and it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, if you watch them back to back, I'd say.
And spoiler, I'll say 3 and 4 were both pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
4 might be the weakest of the bunch, but it was still worth watching.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right, so what happens?
Well, we watch a SWAT team preparing to enter the apartment building from the first film. Lara, Rosso, Martos, and the chief suit up in the back of the truck and make jokes. And they're told it's some kind of contagious infection, but not much more than that. And when they arrive at the plastic-sealed apartment, there's a huge crowd gathered outside. They introduce the men to Dr. Owen, who wants to go inside with them and investigate. And they are told that there are at least 2 dead inside.
At least. Yeah.
That's an understatement. Yeah. Well, the men do get inside and find blood all over the entryway. Dr. Owen immediately takes off his mask and says it's not airborne. Now, how does he know that? Okay, he does know that because...
Well, it's revealed later.
There's more to him, yeah. The disease goes through blood and saliva. The gas masks were just for show to keep things quiet outside. Well, the heavily armed men climb the stairs up to the top, use a battering ram on the last door. This is the weird lab from the earlier film, and Dr. Owen plays the tape. They also find a trap door going up into the attic, but there's nothing up there.
Now, at this point, you'd wonder why they're doing it. If you hadn't seen the first movie, you'd kind of wonder why they were going straight to the attic. But if you'd seen the first movie, you'd know why.
Mm-hmm. There is a reason, yeah. They hear noises, music, and screams from below, and the men check it out against Owen's orders. Martos is attacked by a zombie woman, and everyone freaks out. When they come in, Martos attacks them. He turns very quickly. Owen holds him at bay with a Latin prayer, which isn't particularly medical, but it works. So there's some kind of connection there between religion and science.
In the first movie, it seemed like it was just a zombie disease. And at the end, we find out there was maybe some magic involved, but it was basically zombies in the first movie.
Yeah. Well, he then traps the infected in a room by hanging a rosary on the door. The rest of the men want to leave. That's not how a virus works. Yeah, understandably, they're like, yeah, we're done. We're leaving. Yeah. Well, the chief wants answers, but Owen explains that it's a demonic virus, and the church agrees. But it's also a virus, so it's a possession virus?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, the church was experimenting, and this place was considered discreet.
The people in the Vatican making these decisions, why are they going to choose a random apartment building in Spain?
I don't know. Yeah.
You could do something a lot more isolated.
In the middle of town.
Yeah.
I mean, how is this discreet and isolated? Yeah. Owen reveals that he's really a priest, not from the Department of Health at all. This is a secret operation ordained by the Vatican. And the building is filled with possessed people, demons. And the chief is not pleased.
Not what he signed up for.
Should we stop there?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, basically Owen is saying that they need to find the source of the virus.
Yes, it's a demon that spreads through a virus.
And once they find the source, they can knock the whole thing out.
Maybe.
That's the plan.
All right, so skipping down here to the commentary part, it begins right at the end of the first film, so it's clearly a direct sequel. We didn't see Angela die at the end of the first film. She's the main character, and we just assumed that she did.
She did not.
Maybe not.
She's back.
Well, I like that we get the first half of the story from two different groups' point of view. Yeah, we just talked about the SWAT team. But there's another group that goes in also.
Yeah, they're influencer types that come in basically through an underground tunnel and come up in a connecting area.
Well, the number of characters is small, so we can always tell who's who after the initial crew gets narrowed down a bit. Yeah, I don't know how many SWAT guys there were in the beginning, but pretty soon there's like 3.
There's fewer. Yeah.
It's all very tense, and it's almost as good as the original.
Yeah, it was cool how they picked right up from the previous movie.
And I don't know if the first one is available there, but all these other rec movies we watched on Tubi. So they're free. Go watch them.
Yeah.
We love Tubi.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those that... This is kind of a rarity where it's so smoothly. You could almost watch it, and it is basically one movie.
Yep. Except for the third movie.
One long movie. Well, yeah,
weird.
The third one changes things up, but I mean the first two.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, speaking of number 3, we got 2012, Rec 3, Genesis.
The Beginning, a prequel.
Sorta.
Directed
by Paco Plaza, written by Luiso Berdejo, Paco Plaza, and David Gallert. Stars Leticia Dolera, Diego Martin, and Ismael Martinez.
Sounds Spanish.
It sounds very... They're all Spanish.
Oh, okay.
Hour and 20 minutes, and there's a trailer. All right. Spoiler-free, what happens?
Well, this is... It takes place at a happy wedding.
Yay.
Yeah. It is presented as a prequel to the first 2 Rec movies, and it is a decent zombie flick, but it doesn't have a solid connection to where the Rec movies start out. It could be a standalone movie on its own. And we were speculating that maybe it was a standalone movie and they kind of slapped the Rec title on it.
Yeah.
We would recommend it for being quite a good movie, but it was kind of lacking as far as filling in more information on the Rec story.
If you're really into the first 2 movies, this is another movie.
It's a zombie film.
It's a zombie film, yeah. It's not connected to the apartment building or any of those characters at all. Like you said, somebody made this movie and stuck the name on it, is my guess.
Zombie Outbreak.
It's good. It's a good movie.
Oh, it was, yeah.
But don't expect a lot of
very much
Rec lore in this one. Well, we start out watching a DVD montage of footage of Clara and Coldo's wedding. We cut to the actual wedding, where Coldo's cousin Adrian records everything. Yep, found footage. Another cameraman, Atun, talks about his Steadicam that he uses for shooting. Boy, that's quite a wedding for a camera for a wedding, isn't it?
It sure is, yeah.
It's much better than Adrian's cheap camcorder. Inside, Clara's sister records her in her wedding dress. Clara says she has a secret, and then the camera cuts out. At the wedding, Uncle Tio has a wound on his hand. He says he got bitten by an animal at work, but he seems fine.
For now.
Yeah, we know where this is going already.
Yep.
An animal at work. Now, the second movie with the whole demonic virus thing, there was no mention of animal testing or animals at all. So this is why we think maybe this didn't start out as a wreck movie.
Mm-hmm.
Clara arrives at the church, and the wedding proceeds as expected. After the vows, Koldo sings to his new bride, and everyone cheers. Then it's time for the reception, and it all looks very nice. It's a very expensive-looking wedding. But there's no alcohol. And I don't know if that's relevant to anything, but I think that's probably unusual for a Spain wedding.
It's unusual for any wedding.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle Victor starts looking a little green around the gills, but he's still smiling. Clara almost tells Koldo her secret, but they get interrupted. They cut the wedding cake with a big sword.
And I said, that's Chekhov's sword.
Yeah, you know that's going to come back.
You know that's going to be used against zombies later.
As Adrian interviews a guy named Sponge John, because SpongeBob is copyrighted, he notices Victor vomiting outside. A police car drives up. Inside, Koldo and Claire dance. As the dance goes on, Uncle Victor takes a header over the upstairs railing and falls down. He makes quite a show out of that.
Mm-hmm.
But he gets up, and he bites a woman and kills her. He's a zombie!
And now she's a zombie.
We didn't
and
see that
everybody's
coming.
zombies. It spreads quick.
Things get real crazy, real fast, as suddenly half the guests start attacking each other. And the credits roll. 22 minutes in. All right, we'll stop there. I mean, you know what's going to happen here. It's a zombie movie.
Zombie mayhem.
Yeah.
And the various groups divide up into smaller groups of survivors fighting zombies and getting back together, and various drama of escape and survival.
They always seem to get locked into a room or something.
And the bride and groom get separated, and you're wondering, are they going to get back together?
What is her big secret if you couldn't possibly guess?
And what is her big secret? Yeah.
Well, we watched these on Tubi, and it was kind of funny because all the ads came in Spanish afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You're watching a movie in Spanish, therefore. Except the commercials didn't have subtitles like the movie did.
No. Well, this one is supposedly a prequel to the first two films, showing us how the plague started. Except in the previous film, we were told that the whole thing was an experiment by the church to make a vaccine for demonic evil. And there are clearly demons involved in those. Here, it's a straight-up zombie virus caused by an animal bite.
However, there is a religious factor, too.
There does seem to be some demonic influence after a while, yes.
After a while?
At some point, somebody prays and it works.
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, we suspect it got the wreck name just to help it sell, but it's still pretty good. We still like it. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah. It was a grim piece of work. Big body count. Even children getting killed.
Well, that's the best kind. All right, and we didn't want to overload this week, so we'll do Rec 4 next week.
Okay.
Let's move on to something a little sillier.
The Bride of Chucky from 1998.
Directed by Ronnie Yu, written by Don Mancini, stars Jennifer Tilly, Brad Dourif, and Katherine Heigl. Our 29 minutes.
Now here the Child's Play movies are fully embracing the humor.
The first one was strictly a horror movie. There's not a lot funny about the first Child's Play movie.
And the second one pretty much too.
The second one had a couple of laughs in it here and there, but it was not a comedy. It was still a horror movie.
But gradually...
The third one was just kind of bad.
Not gradually, but yeah.
Yeah, they were trying to drag out the horror movie in the third one, and it just got too much. It was too thin.
Yeah.
So this one, they crossed the line.
They did.
They went full-on comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about Bride of Chucky? Excellent or terrible? The opinions are mixed.
Midline.
Okay.
I didn't think it was awful. I was entertained. It's funny, but it's not really, it's not horror anymore. It's not Child's Play anymore. I don't know. Yeah.
I think the Child's Play series would have died after the third one if they had tried to go on with another of the same old crap.
This kept it going.
This kept the series going. And
it did. And it led to the series, which was pretty good.
The TV show, yes.
Yeah, and they need to make another season of the TV show, by the way. I'm just going to throw that out there.
They're not gonna.
I'm telling the people in charge, if you're listening, you need to make another season.
It was canceled after season 3.
Well, they need to make a season 4.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, I think my favorite is the first one, but after the first one, it's this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too.
All right, so anyway, we open at the police station in the evidence repository room. There's a Michael Myers mask and a Jason mask. So, yep, we're getting the laughs out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
The cop opens a locker and grabs a plastic bag with something in it. He drives away through the storm and calls a woman on the phone. "I'm on my way. Don't forget my money." Bailey, the cop, parks and waits for the woman, but he's also very curious about what's in the bag. He tears it open and dies for his nosiness. The woman kills him, and we see that she's Tiffany, who looks a lot like Jennifer Tilly.
Yeah, she does.
This is an ongoing joke in the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
Jennifer Tilly actually shows up as herself, sorta. Kinda.
Yeah, it's complicated. Yeah.
Inside the bag is what's left of Chucky's face. Credits roll. Tiffany then goes home and sews up a new doll and sews the old face onto it. He's still a mess after the events of the previous film.
But he's whole again.
Yep. David Collins goes to Jade's house and meets Warren, her policeman uncle. The uncle calls someone as soon as they leave. David is clearly gay, and he's only there to fool Warren. She is way more interested in Jesse, who's hiding in the back seat. Lieutenant Norton pulls them over. Gotcha. Police Chief Warren shows up to take Jade home. So he doesn't want her dating anybody.
No, very protective.
Meanwhile, Tiffany creates a pentagram and reads Voodoo for Dummies.
Which is just
my favorite scene of the movie. I love the Voodoo for Dummies.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And she's only on like chapter 2 if you look how far she is into the book. She reads from the book and does the spell that reanimates Chucky, and it doesn't work. Her goth friend, Damien, he's a hoot.
Yeah,
he stops over and he's a wannabe killer, or at least a makeup artist. Tiff turns her head and notices that the doll is gone. Chucky turns up, and she says he's the actual doll from Those Murders. "He isn't scary. He's so 80s, Damien jokes. Damien throws him across the room. Tiff then tricks Damien into getting tied up on the bed, but he doesn't get what he was expecting.
He was expecting good times. He doesn't get a good time.
Chucky gets a good time.
Yeah.
Tiff explains that she used to be Charles Lee Ray's girlfriend, and he used to be the jealous type. She does a sexy dance that awakens something in both of them. Chucky comes to life and kills Damien, much to Tiffany's pleasure. Tiffany admits it's been 10 years that she's been looking for him. He says she looks great, but she doesn't say the same about him. He's kind of a scarred-up mess.
Yeah, he's been put together. Yeah.
She thought he was going to ask her to marry him, but he laughs at the idea. He wants out of the doll's body, but she locks him in a cage instead. She may be even crazier than he is. "Now it's payback time," she says. All right, well, let's just stop there.
Because they have adventures from there.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
Are they in this together, or are they against each other?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Both.
All right, well, this is where Chucky went from tongue-in-cheek slasher to full-on comedic masterpiece. A change and a storyline that continues throughout all the rest of the movies and the TV series. Fully embracing the franchisehood of Chucky, Michael Myers, Jason, and even Pinhead make cameos, sorta. The Pinhead cameo.
Mm-hmm. Pinhead.
Why does that look so familiar?
Why does that look so familiar? It's one of the deaths. Yeah.
There's also more than one Bride of Frankenstein reference here. Depending on your view of the humor aspect, it's either the best or the worst of the Chucky series. I know I've seen it a bunch of times. I would love to get a Voodoo for Dummies book.
Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still got the body count and the horrific deaths, but yeah, they're funny. They make death funny.
All right, one that's not terribly funny is 2005's Hellraiser VIII Hellworld.
I didn't think this was funny at all.
No. Directed by Rick Boda. Written by Clive Barker, Joel Soyson, and Carl V. Dupre. Stars Catherine Winnick, Anna Tolpett, Henry Cavill, Lance Henriksen, and Doug Bradley. Is Catherine spelled right there? That's a weird spelling.
That is a weird
Hour
spelling.
and 31 minutes. Trailer in the show notes. Well, okay, so we have complained. You know, you had Hellraiser 1, 2, and 3, which were decent.
Mm-hmm.
4, which wasn't awful. And then 5, 6, and 7 were just random movies that had Pinhead thrown in at the last minute.
Barely, yeah.
Barely Hellraiser.
Mm-hmm.
Or, scripts that had been modified to make Hellraiser movies out of them.
Yeah, they were just bad.
Which I never understood why that was necessary. How hard is it to write a Hellraiser movie as a Hellraiser movie?
I guess it was hard.
This one, however, comes back to the originals, and it is a real Hellraiser movie. It's not some rehashed old script.
It's much better. It's a step back in the right direction.
Yeah. All right. It's not as good as the first two, but it's better than some of the more recent ones, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It's got plenty of Pinhead and a couple of the other Cenobites, but it's mostly people just doing stuff in the real world. It's kind of a haunted house movie, almost. It was all right. Not great, but it's all right. Better than the previous three.
Better. It was such a positive step in the right direction that it made it seem better than it probably is.
It's not great.
It's not great.
It's better.
Good. It's good. It's better. Yeah.
A man digs in the basement. He finds what he wants and screams in victory. Credits roll over footage of a funeral. Well, Adam is dead, apparently from suicide. Jake and Mike are there. They're not holding up very well. Adam's own parents didn't come. It's just the kids.
Yeah, it's literally just a bunch of actors who are supposed to be kids.
Yeah. They complain that they were all addicted to the Hellworld game. Chelsea has no self-control and opens up the casket. Adam is inside, and his burned corpse reaches up and grabs her. Nope, just a dream.
That's why there was no adults at the funeral. It wasn't really the funeral.
Well,
I think she was just dreaming it.
I think we find out later why the parents didn't come to the funeral, so no, I think that was real enough.
Well, all right.
2 years later, Chelsea gets a knock at the door. It's the Chatterer's Cenobite. No, it's just Mike in a rubber mask. They know all about Cenobites and the puzzle box. It's all part of a Hellraiser video game. Mike has been invited to the latest Hellworld party at the Leviathan house. They're fitting all the names in.
Yeah, they are.
Allison and Derek are on board for the party, too. The video game involves opening a virtual version of the Lament configuration.
And they worked a lot of the classic lines from the first couple movies into the video game that they're playing in the movie.
Chelsea isn't interested in the game anymore, but Mike really wants her to come along. Well, the four arrive at the party house, and they're all excited. Chelsea says, Adam would have loved this. Allison says, this party is going to kick A! Which at this point we kind of wonder, what was the rating on this movie?
Yeah.
Kicking A.
Or was she just raised ultra-religious or what? Yeah, it was an odd way to put it.
Yeah, it's really stood out. It's a really bad line.
Yeah.
Jake shows up, and he's still all mopey. None of them have seen him since the funeral. Well, the host comes out, and he's just the host. He doesn't get a name.
He's Lance Hendrickson.
Yeah, and welcomes in a surprisingly large role.
Mm-hmm.
He welcomes everybody to the party. He says he's the ultimate Hellworld fanatic, and he has a ridiculous collection of Hellraiser merchandise. And it is merchandise, because it's all just a commercial game now.
Mm-hmm.
Leviathan House...
Except he's got a roll cube or two, too. Yeah.
Leviathan House was built by Le Marchand, the same man who made the famous puzzle box, which is odd because that was in France and this is not.
Yeah, and long ago, and the house isn't that old.
Well, okay.
We'll not nitpick on that.
Hand-wavium.
We won't nitpick on that. Yeah.
The place was built as a convent, but a crazy nun tainted the place. Later, it became a lockup for the criminally insane, and yes, it's supposed to be haunted. The host then leads the four into his special room, full of jars of faces and body parts. What's that got to do with Hellraiser?
Just for fun.
Okay, he's just creepy.
Yeah, he's creepy. Got a cool collection of stuff.
Chelsea admits that she's impressed and doesn't believe any of that Hellworld stuff. Then he sticks a nail in her, and she hallucinates Pinhead, who says, Adam was right. Well, they go back up to the party, and the host explains how the mask and cell phone game allows for anonymous debauchery. Mike and Derek are into trying that. Allison, on the other hand, goes inside the door marked Keep Out. She sits in a chair that looks like it came from the producers of Saw.
It totally could have been a Saw trap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
The host comes in and explains how the device works, and he activates the machine, and Allison gets bloody. As she dies, Pinhead appears to Allison, asking if she believes Adam now. All right, we'll stop there.
Okay.
There will be fewer young people as the movie progresses.
It's that kind of movie.
So we don't know at the end, was any of the Pinhead stuff real, or was it just a hallucination?
Well, there is a final scene.
The final scene,
with Lance Hendrickson that kind of makes it.
But what about the rest?
But the rest, we don't know.
Well, this was filmed simultaneously with the previous movie, Hellraiser, Deader, the seventh film in the franchise. This was also Doug Bradley's last time playing Pinhead. There was
and that's sad.
Another guy in the next one.
Yeah, who was no Doug Bradley.
No.
Yeah.
Unlike the previous 4 installments, this was actually written as a Hellraiser movie. The others were just random scripts with some Pinhead thrown in.
And supposedly Lance Henriksen didn't realize he was in a Hellraiser movie, which I find hard
He
to
was
believe.
asked later about his Hellraiser. He didn't remember ever being in a Hellraiser movie, which makes no... He had a fairly big role in this, and it's not like they just tacked his scenes in like some of the other things we've seen.
Yeah, and he was handling the cube prop.
Yeah.
And in a room with Hellraiser stuff, and I don't see how that's, whatever, But it was a big improvement on some of the previous films.
Yeah. It's not the best movie of the series, but it was better than what came before.
Yeah.
Hey.
Some hope that we're back on track.
That's it. Short episode.
Uh-huh.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
We'll be back next week with more horror movies and probably a few shorts.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.